Hi, I thought I would make a series of videos explaining my connection map and why certain things are included. So, let me give you some history on Hollywood. Hollywood did not start out as a prestigious place for the rich and powerful and famous. It came out of the tradition of vaudeville, which was, people doing little acts on stage, they'd tour around. It was associated with the lower classes. So when film started, it would be prostitutes a lot that were actually the stars in the movies, and that shifted, right, as the power and the money consolidated around the distribution networks. So it matters because in the old Hollywood system, the studio owned every part of the production, which is called vertical integration, right? They own the stars, they own shooting, like agents, managers, all the same company as who makes the movie and where the movies are distributed. So that's why you'll see Fox theaters now, like in Atlanta, etc. So what we've seen now over the last 20 years is we've gone back to that after they were broken up in the 1950s, I think. So it matters that the movie industry had vertical integration because ultimately the music industry took a lot longer for that to happen. And there was this loosely affiliated group of promoters called the network. Just table that for right now. Ronald Reagan matters because he was governor of California, but previously he had been an actor, and he had an agent named Lew Wasserman. And Ronald Reagan ended up being the president of the labor union, the Screen Actors Guild. You may have heard of their awards. And he was able to give MCA, which was run by Lew Wasserman, a waiver so that they could represent artists and own the means of production. And they're the only company that was allowed to do that. And then Lew and Reagan stayed very tight all throughout Reagan's career. And this is important because it's ideology, right? It's saying we know better, we should control everything, including the narrative, such as the Hays Code, which, next video coming. The Hays Code was basically a censorship board in early Hollywood where certain narratives were not allowed to be in the movies, and it was very much rooted in Protestant, puritanical culture, right? And then you also have the House of Un-American Activities, which was rooting out communists in Hollywood. And there's been so much staying power of that narrative. Anyone who calls Hollywood liberal is lying. It is not at all. We haven't had a Norma Ray in a long time. And that was all about, creating a labor union in a factory in the South. And Sally Field's in it. It's brilliant. You should watch it. So Ronald Reagan was propped up by Hollywood to be governor of California and then subsequently the president. You have to remember that the Cold War was the most important thing to these people. So they really didn't care if the drug trade is what was used to send guns down to South America. Okay? That's exactly what it was. Send money up that's untraceable. My point being here, and it will all relate back to Britney, is that the government has always used organized crime to do the things that they want off the books, right? Like JFK, tried to hire the mob, or CIA really, to assassinate Castro. Because fighting communism was the most important thing, because monopolistic capitalism is exactly what they wanted. And it's exactly what they got, okay? So, Vegas was started by the mafia, okay? And the Aladdin Theater that subsequently became Planet Hollywood, where Britney performed, was created by the misuse of the Teamsters unions, pension funds by Jimmy Hoffa, who was the head of that union, and his relationship to organized crime, etc. Okay? And so this is part of the reason labor unions were destroyed. They were sabotaged from the inside. And so Nixon actually gave Hoffa a pardon after he was convicted. Crazy, huh? And Nixon served on the House of Un-American Activities Committee. And now let's talk about Florida and its relationship to. So because of the drug trade, Florida has, to this day, a vast money laundering infrastructure. Because all the drugs were flowing through there before, well, most of them, before they shut down, bringing them by sea or by air. And now they're going through Mexico for the most part. But a lot of the money laundering there is going through churches. And Billy Graham's grandson is tight with Lou Taylor. And look up Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale, and there's some shady business going on there. Billy Graham got his start in Hollywood, and it was besties with Ronald Reagan. He was preaching to the mafia and Hollywood. So when we think about Britney, we can't think like normal people. We gotta think like people who have been descendants from powerful people. I mean, these are really like fiefdoms, right? Like these, and it's very Games of Thrones-y, for sure, right? So Lou Taylor comes into this through that evangelical pathway because it's an ontological war, and that's why they're tight with the state of Israel, because other people can't exist that don't believe like them. Bomb them, they're not saved. I mean, that's essentially the rationale, right? And let's talk about 2007. Okay, think about why Sam Asghari would post a picture mimicking Arnold Schwarzenegger recently, who was governor of California from, I think, 2003 to 2011. California, if it was a country, would be the 5th largest country in the world. And so if you think about Britney's case and the initiation of her conservatorship as a movie, and then the maintenance of her conservatorship as an intelligence operation, it makes more sense. Because not only was she silent for 13 years, the media was. The most articles I could find were a handful, maybe a few here and there in the late teens, more so in the foreign press, right? Them being like, what the hell is going on in America? And Jerry Brown was Attorney General while Schwarzenegger was governor, and then he became governor twice subsequently from 2011 to 2019. His daddy was also Attorney General and Governor of California too. Think about how much power that is and who they just grew up going to Christmas parties with and soirees, right? Okay, so if you think about everything that happened to Britney and really believe her that she was set up, she was. I mean, there's no way. If you can afford to pay off anyone who interacted with her to say some bullshit about her, it's going to look valid. They needed her to be so crazy. And I've always said, it doesn't matter what her mental health status is. It's mental health stigma that was used to ensnare and entrap her for 13 years. Okay? And so if you think about how quickly she got back to work, it makes sense because she becomes an ideological tool, protecting a white princess, blondie, And this is under the war on terror. If you think Islamophobia is bad and Reagan shutting down the airport, I mean Trump, not that they're so different, maybe in temperament and demeanor. They're ideologically not that different because capitalism is capitalism. So think about how the marching orders to war were so present that just look at the votes to invade the war in Iraq. She became a liability because she ultimately came off as being sympathetic to Middle Easterners. So I'm almost done with this piece of the puzzle. So if you think about everything that happened to her in 2008, it was a production, right? Overwhelming paparazzi, overwhelming police presence at her home, taking her away. Okay? Now, think about money and a cash economy, right? And think about how so many, if you look at my map, on the periphery of the whole entire thing, you'll see lots of IRS involvement. Isn't that interesting? And IRS convictions are notorious for organized crime. Now, also, think about how Rudy Giuliani, mayor of New York, but he made his name as a prosecutor, breaking up the 5 mafia families in New York City. They're Italian, but the problem with that is people think the Italian are the only mafia. And people think the mafia went away. Look at how many people involved inherited alcohol empires. Well, that money comes from prohibition and underground bootleggers. And then think about when the mafia gets broken up, quote unquote, they don't really have a huge seizure of cash and assets. Now think of Mueller, okay? I'm back. So when we think about the Mueller investigation and what they found and the outcomes from it, they really didn't go that hard on all the crimes they knew about. And it's almost politically infeasible to do so. But everyone involved in that case has the expertise in the background to know where to look for future investigations. So Britney hired 2 people from the Mueller investigation, Freeney and Abadi, and who is very involved in South Florida. Not only Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, Lou Pearlman, who's far more involved in Britney's career and Larry Rudolph than I can find on the internet, but I know it's true. So that's why that matters, that she would specifically, probably with guidance and strategy sessions with her team, hire people that know about that money laundering network. And there's human traffickers all over the map too. Anyone who uses their body as part of their labor is going to be less powerful than the suits and the bankers and the lawyers, okay? I'm going to wait for the next one. Okay, so let's think about Florida. There is advocacy and political naivete that can coexist at the same time. So I'm not pointing fingers at anyone specifically, and part of making a connection map is having people be like, whoa, wasn't me, you know? So when we think about how involved Florida politicians have been in the Free Britney movement, you have to wonder, why did they show up out of everybody? I mean, everyone else just tweeted it, right? We have Matt Gaetz, a Florida congressman, show up at a Free Britney rally. And I okay, oh my God, you're a congressman, you're here, you want to talk? You know, totally understand how that would happen. Yet he had human, taking a minor across state lines for sexual intercourse, human trafficking, case investigation be divulged mere weeks earlier, okay? Then you have Charlie Crist, who, wrote the Free Britney Act, which became the Free Act, who refused to prosecute Lou Pearlman, who was involved with the Backstreet Boys down in South Florida, and stole all their money. NSYNC too. He refused to prosecute him even though he had 2,000 complaints against him from up-and-coming wannabes. Okay, so Lou Pearlman was like this hustler who was the kind of guy who was like, hey kids, you want to be a star? Well, give me your money and I'll teach you how, blah, blah, blah. He ended up going down because he was stealing money from elderly people in some scam about investment scam, okay? Millions and millions of dollars gone. How much money did they recover from that? I don't know. I'm left with a lot of questions too, and it's too much for me to investigate myself. But what you'll see over and over again is the pattern with white-collar criminals. They don't recover a lot of the funds, and very few people get prosecuted. Imagine how many people did it take for Jeffrey Epstein to traffic, I don't know, hundreds of people over the decades that he did it? So Lou Pearlman and Charlie Crist, what is that relationship? Well, I know he was a political donor. And now I want to shift to Kroll, which is the company that the Mueller people, one of them works for, or both of them, I'm not sure. They did the Caesars bankruptcy, which is a whole other spin, and I wasn't going to do Vegas right now, but I'll finish this part, okay? Okay, so the Caesars bankruptcy. They filed for bankruptcy in 2015. Now, TPG Capital and Apollo, private equity firms, bought Caesars in 2008. They probably got it at a bargain because it was a financial crisis, right? I'm sure they had big plans to, spur on the regrowth of Las Vegas. Okay, so they buy Caesars, right? The money they used to buy Caesars becomes the debt of Caesars, right? Then somebody else bought that debt, Appaloosa, and I think something else. It doesn't even matter, because see how they shift that money? It becomes someone else's problem and burden. Don't believe any rich people that go to fundraisers, okay? It's because they don't want to pay taxes. Don't think they're charitable at all whatsoever. Okay, that's aside. So the 2015 Caesars bankruptcy. Part of the problem, huge problem, was they misrepresented the value of the company. And a large piece of that was assessing the value of Britney's Piece of Me residency at Planet Hollywood. So the Caesars bankruptcy. It's important that Britney and her team decided to hire someone who already has that institutional knowledge about what went down during the Caesars bankruptcy. Because whatever it was bad. It was really bad. Okay, so the important thing is, right, that's a lot of labor, like she won't have to pay for. And they probably had teams of people working on it. If you go look at it, it's 10,000 documents. A lot of spreadsheets, okay? So all you have to do, ring up your friend who worked on blah, blah, blah too. Okay, and the thing about the Caesars bankruptcy is that Apollo and TPG did stuff that was so bad. They lost partial control of the company to the people who own the debt, and they lost $1 billion in equity of, I think, an $8 billion company. They subpoenaed the head of TPG Capital's personal emails, okay? It was not good. It was not good at all. And, of course, no one's prosecuted. And the head of Apollo had to step down because of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. See, it's a network. I hope you now understand why I get frustrated with Lou Taylor being perceived as this mastermind. What they needed was a church lady a social worker type who could come in and be like, the family wants to take care of her or whatever. Fuck that bitch. But at the same time, she did do crimes. But she got more opportunities to do crimes because of the big wigs, okay? So, I kind of regret wearing this wig now, but I'm committed. You know, you're going to stay in character. Okay, so TPG Capital, right? They owned Caesars in 2008. They were always switching owners, but in 2008, they owned Caesars. In 2011, they bought basically 48% of the Palms Casino. And the Maloofs are very involved with Britney Spears and Larry Rudolph. Not only that, they owned 35% of CAA before 2014 and then upped it to 53% controlling interest in 2014. Okay? I was gonna stop this a while ago. Oh, my head's itchy. Okay. Remember, TPG. Why does it matter? Well, it's coming in the next video. So, the TPG is so important because they're so nakedly involved with everyone around Britney and her residency. And there was a real shift between 2011 and 2013. I am going to try to wrap this in a bow. So TPG buys the Palms from the Maloofs, who are like dying financially. The Maloofs, particularly George, is involved with Jamie and Larry. And Jamie worked with him in like 4 different capacities between 2005 and 2009, and no one ever talks about that in the media. Really strange, because it's not hard to find out, so you wonder how protected they are. So TPG buys 48% of the Palms. TPG buys Caesars 2008, right? And then by 2014 they own 53% of CAA, which is Britney's talent agency. And Britney basically joins CAA when she breaks up with Jason Trawick and leaves William Morris and Endeavor. I don't know if they were merged at that time. And the next is coming. So Irving Azoff is the one that took Lou Taylor's career to the next level. I am certain about that. The thing about Ari Emanuel being pissed is that it was leaked emails. I don't know how they leaked, but between him and Shelley and Irving Azoff. Their son, Jeff Azoff, took credit for the success of Piece of Me. And interestingly, in 2012, as a young 20-something-year-old, he was appointed by Governor Jerry Brown to a statewide position. Man, he must be some kind of phenom or something. So, Ari Emanuel is interesting because not only was he blaming Irving Azoff for that, he was pissed at the private equity company Silver Lake. Okay, I know it gets confusing. They merged with IMG, or acquired IMG. Well, Allie Sims married the heir to IMG in 2011. So it's all some weird kind of thing that I haven't figured out quite yet. But Patrick Whitesell and Ari started at CAA, then Ari started Endeavor. So there's some bullshit going on there. I don't know. The interesting thing about Patrick Whitesell is that Lou Taylor has said he was one of her mentors. So something happened where it seems like Ari Emanuel lost some control over William Morris Endeavor as they acquired IMG with Silver Lake's help in 2014. The thing is, Silver Lake later works with Irving Azoff on Madison Square Garden stuff, the Oakview Group. We're talking billions of dollars. They have a new development, the Oakview Group, coming in Vegas. Okay? So something happened there, and I don't know what it is. But just know that whoever pulls the strings the highest, you can't see them right now in the mainstream coverage of Britney Spears' case. And more on Irving Azoff tomorrow, because he started at MCA. Well, he ran MCA for a long time. He started as a promoter in the network of live shows back in the day, in the 70s. And then there's the Eagles and Linda Ronstadt and so much more. Oh my gosh, this is a docuseries.